Cool. So we are getting into the next section, which is identification and prediction. So identification, first, yes, there's something out there, and something that that can tell you that there is a thermal here. So some clue, some marker. So how about some input from yourselves? What are the possible clues that would indicate that there's a thermal next to you or in front of you, wherever, that you can see this thermic activity?
Cloud?
What'd you say there, Andrew?
A cloud.
Yep. So a cloud that's forming, the reason why a cloud is forming is because something has taken the moisture from ground level up to the top where it condenses to form the cloud. So a cloud is a good one. Yeah, the thermal would have taken it up to the top. What else?
I would say moving.
Farrell?
I would say the bushes moving close to the ground on a slope.
Yeah, that is true, because as the thermal's moving, you can see some movement in the vegetation, and that's 100%. Anything else? Richard?
You look for birds, pieces of small grass and stuff rising in the air. I've seen that before as well.
Yeah. Lekker. Birds, are you talking about birds thermaling?
Yeah, birds. Yeah, looking for birds thermaling.
Yeah, 100%. You guys are fortunate to having your. Oh no, Richard, where are you, Richard? You're here in Hout Bay, huh? Patrick, have you flown with vultures?
No, not yet.
Not yet. So those would be good clues. You see a vulture thermaling, making circles. That's a great one. There's other clues out there. People tend to forget other pilots. You see somebody else climbing and you're not climbing, go to him. There's a reason why he's climbing. So if you see somebody making circles, chances are they're in a thermal. Actually, you could see that they're going up. And even if they're below you, and you know, this is something to make use of. You could be high and you see that there's a certain pilot who is much lower than you, but he is climbing and he's coming up and he's actually going to catch you at some point. What you want to do is fly over him, and accounting for the wind drift, which we'll talk about in a second, and get that climb or stay above him. So when it comes through, that you're on top of it and it takes you as well. So looking at other pilots, 100% right. Looking at birds in a thermal, that is correct. Looking at other birds like swallows, this is one of my favorites. Swallows don't thermal, but they eat the insects that are sucked up by thermal. So you may be high and you see thermals down there and they're moving along. They're chowing the insects. And if you fly above them and position yourself in terms of the wind drift, you will likely get the thermal that they are feeding off. There's more clues out there. There's things like smells. Flying out in the rural areas where you're going over cattle farms, you will smell cow shit. If you're flying out in a little bit of suburbia, you may smell braais or whatever it is. Smells originating from the ground coming up. There's a reason why it's come up to where you are. Andrew spoke about clouds. There's also temperature. But I must be honest, and if you think about it, a thermal is warm, and it's warmer than the surrounding air. And so if you feel that the temperature's getting a bit warmer, it's likely a thermal. In my practical experience, I don't think I've ever found a thermal with temperature. And it's probably because when we're flying out here, it's so hot as it is that a little slight change in temperature is not even registering in my brain. So, but theoretically, thermals are warmer, and therefore a change in temperature is indicating that you're coming into some rising air. Those are various clues, and these clues may present itself at, they could be above you, it could be below you, downwind of you, upwind of you. And what you want to do is position yourself such that you can connect with this thermal. And the picture that we are looking at on the right-hand side is is a thermal. That's a picture that we saw earlier on. But what I want to talk about here is that you can notice the thermal drift. So there's that cloud at the top, and the source is, if you follow the red dotted line, that's coming from the source. So thermals drift with wind, and actually you see that even because the wind is not a constant with altitude, so closer to the ground it was bent a lot more, and then much higher up it straightens up, indicating that the wind is not strong up there. But you can't see this. However, when you are flying, you should always be aware of the wind direction and strength. This is important for finding thermals and thermaling, and it's also important for the safety of yourself. You want to be aware of what's going on, especially in terms of wind strength, because you want to land in a strength of wind that you are comfortable to land in, whatever that is, but you must make that decision and be aware. So, although we may identify thermals via various clues, we also need to think to ourselves, okay, the wind's blowing in this direction, I'm at this point. If we look at this picture over here and the pilot that's flying, you know, he would be aware that the wind is going from left to right, whatever that direction is. And when he flies to the cloud, he shouldn't fly directly underneath the cloud, depending how high he is relative to the cloud, but upwind of it, because that thermal would be drifting up into the cloud. So this is something that you need to think about. And conversely, if you are high and you see the thermals down below, so perhaps the thermals are here, not the thermals, sorry, the swallows, you see the swallows and they're eating the insects down here. And when you fly above them, you want to position yourself, you know, with this, you know, taking into account the wind drift and your best guess as to where you will find the thermal. Any questions?
Ria, just very quickly, in your description there, or your picture, the strongest part of the climb is on the front end of it, so the upwind side of the dam.
Yeah.
Would it not maybe be, like you were saying, with the humidity of the air, be the other way around, where the back end of that might be the stronger side?
Usually not. And if we think back to that's drawing with the thermal structure in wind versus no wind, in the weaker parts of lift around the thermal are going to be more susceptible to the wind and therefore drift downwind, and the stronger parts will be on the upwind side.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Cool. I'd like to ask a question over here. The thing about us and flying is that the wind is not constant. We spoke about wind speed not being constant, but you can also have the wind direction different at different altitudes. And this is typical. If you have an inversion below you, you could have a northerly at 1,500 meters, and you may have a southwester on the ground. And if you're looking for a thermal that's coming off the ground, looking at your ground sources and trying to predict where you will connect with this thermal coming off whatever trigger, you want to account for wind. So the question is, what clues are out there to tell us what the ground wind is doing? Richard?
Ground wind, you could look at, I guess you could look at trees depending how high you are. I'm actually not quite sure. Smoke, you could look at if there was smoke rising.
Yeah.
Movement on the water, if you've got water sources.
Yeah. Water, and I love the water one, because typically when we're flying and if it's cross country, that there are dams all over the place, that they can be you can tell the wind direction by looking at the water. So that's a great one. You spoke about smoke coming off a factory or whatever it is. That's also a good one. It could be rising dust from a dirt road. Various clues. The obvious, if you were close to a landing site, what is the windsock doing? or what are flags doing, flags that are on flag poles in front of the gate of this particular farm, whatever. So you need to look around you to assess this wind direction. You can't just base it on your ground speed, because using your ground speed in is a good indicator for what the wind is doing at the level you are at. And to do this, I go back to be able to look all around and observe what's going on. This is critical. And to do this, you need a brain that is open, eyes that are open, that's taking in the surroundings. And that's really what's going to make you a better pilot. Going up wing classes and performance, if you can't control the wing and you're shitting yourself on the wing, your brain isn't open and your eyes aren't open to take in the clues. And somebody can be flying a student glider and easily outperform you, because they are actually assessing what's going on, understanding what's going on, and making good decisions.